Some 60,000 South Africans gathered on December 10th to bid farewell to anti-apartheid icon Nelson Mandela. The event in the rain at a Johannesburg soccer stadium brought together dignitaries and celebrities from around the world, as well as ordinary South Africans who braved long waits and bad weather to pay tribute to the man everyone calls Madiba. Mr. Mandela's impact on Africa will be felt for a long time, perhaps most notably by young people. And I'm joined today by Jackson Mvunganyi, co-host of Up Front, a fast-paced radio variety show for young Africans. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What do you think Nelson Mandela meant for the young people of Africa?
Well, Nelson Mandela represented a spirit of resilience for many young Africans, not just South Africans. And he continues to be that symbol of a person who persevered under insurmountable circumstances. You remember he had to face a regime that was not holding back in terms of its power, in its ability to crush the anti-apartheid activists like Nelson Mandela. So young people in these very challenging times right now on the continent, all over the continent, look at Mandela as a source of inspiration in many ways.
In your program Up Front, you and your co-host, what kind of reactions are you guys getting?
Well, there's a sadness, really, that he has passed, but we saw this coming. But also, if you look at some of the imagery and some of the people that we've spoken to on the show, there's a celebration. Celebration that we were alive, really, frankly, as we lived, inhabited the planet at the same time as a very great individual. There are very few Mandelas that will live during our lifetime, and he's one in a million. And so they're very happy that they were around, they were able to see what he did. And they're also happy that some of the achievements that he fought for, they're enjoying some of those achievements right now. It's a much more, there's less, even though there's high unemployment, but you can see that there's an opportunity for them, for social migration in terms of, getting jobs, having education, having some money in their pockets and things of that nature, things that Nelson Mandela fought for.
Considering that he's gone through a lot in his life, what kind of role model do you think he can be for not just leaders in Africa, but around the world?
Well, Nelson Mandela is, a leader that wants to be emulated. And I say wants to be emulated because there's so many leaders across the African continent who want to attach their name to him and his accomplishments. But since, honestly, there are very few that can stand up to him. He set a standard, a bar that's really high for anybody, any of the leaders we have in power right now to attain, to achieve, and they can try to aspire to get there. But it does not mean that the young people who are the future leaders of the continent cannot aspire to be the Nelson Mandelas of tomorrow.
I've always wanted to meet the guy. I couldn't. What about you? Did you get a chance to meet him?
I never got a chance to meet him. I would have loved to meet, Madiba, but I feel like many other people that we kind of, met him somehow. He was part of our lives in many ways, whether through pop culture, whether through his struggles, through, TV, through movies, the songs, the music. We, on the show today, we played music that had that was about Nelson Mandela. So you could fill a whole album, pop culture album, with Nelson Mandela. That's how much this man was revered.
And in closing, if you could just tell us, what was that one thing about him that attracted people towards him? I mean, there was something on his face that he had this charismatic look.
Very charismatic fella.
What was the core of Nelson Mandela?
I think that he had a persona around him, a coolness. He's a man who has endured a lot of suffering, but he was still always had a smile on his face. He was a man who was very forgiving. When we watched the memorial ceremony, some of the people that were part of the process of putting him in so much trouble that he went were part of the memorial process. Procession. And that speaks to the character of a man who is very willing to forgive and look past everything that has been done to him, because he understood the struggle in its larger context, that the struggle was much bigger than Mandela. He had a very fatherly quality to him too, that's why they called him Tata, or Madiba, or others called him Madiba, teacher. But Mandela will always be remembered. He's one in a lifetime type of figure that, and we're so happy to have lived in the same time with him.
And on that note, Jackson, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Jackson Mvunganyi, host of a very popular Upfront program on VOA.
Thank you.